You're listening to the Plane Talking UK podcast, the UK-based podcast written by a passenger for anyone. And here are your hosts, Carlos Stebbings, Matt Smith and Neville Bounds.
Well, hello everybody and welcome to the Plane Talking UK podcast, episode 232. My name's Neville Bounds and joining me today, because Carlos is not here, is Matt Smith.
Oh, well, hello everyone. Hello and welcome. Yes, we're at my humble abode today. We've been kicked out of the kitchen studio because, there's nobody there, frankly. So, yes, we're at my humble abode today. Nev, you're in your usual location, I assume?
Yes, indeed. Yeah, absolutely. And all is well here. Thank you very much indeed.
I know we've had nice weather today. This is very unnerving.
It's been great, isn't it? Very nice. And we've got some more good weather approaching next week, we're being told as well. So
Have we?
25, 26 degrees.
Right, yeah. Can I have that in writing, please? Because it is the UK.
We don't mind that at all.
Indeed.
But of course, with Carlos not here, we had to find someone appropriate.
Big enough shoes to fill, you see. This is it. And I can't...
Who could we have got? Well, there's so many people we could choose from, but of course, there's only one person to choose from isn't there, when this situation happens. And of course, from the airline pilot guy, it's Captain Jeff.
Hello. Great to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, thanks, Jeff, for coming on, and we really appreciate your contribution. And it's so nice to have a professional on the show rather than just us, bunch of amateurs.
I know. So somebody might know what they're doing. That'll be nice.
I would not say that, actually, but thank you.
Well, if we have any aviation questions come up, we've got a chance that they could be answered accurately.
Absolutely.
At least 50% accuracy.
Yeah,
We'll take that. Wow, as high as that. I'm impressed. Yeah, I was going to go with 30, but
yeah, fair enough. What have you been up to this week, Jeff? You've been busy flying?
I flew a trip Tuesday through Thursday, and on that trip recorded a show on Wednesday, and I just started editing the audio, so I have a lot of work ahead of me.
Right to you.
But it was a great trip. It was a double Sarasota, Florida layover, and we stayed in a nice hotel there, and it was good.
Very
nice too.
Yeah,
excellent.
absolutely.
What's the weather been like for flying, Jeff, this week?
Well, this time of year, especially in the southeastern United States, flying early in the day, you're usually okay. Mid-afternoon to evening, good luck, because it's going to be stormy, probably. So, fortunately for us, we avoided all that stormy stuff because we flew mostly in the morning. And, it's just that late summer dog days of summer kind of weather pattern.
Yeah, I certainly remember flying into Florida quite often and arriving there at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and that's when it all starts, isn't it?
Yep, almost like clockwork.
Yeah, it is.
Indeed, it almost kicks off. Well, we'll just say hello to a few people in the chat room, if we may. So we've got Barbara Parish, Falco, Lane Street, Liz Piper, Mariana, Masha Gertz, Nico Rieger, and we've got Richard King, somebody by the name of Carlos Stebbings. I've never heard of him. Richard King and Robert Fairbairn, just to name a few. So thank you very much for joining us live. As I said, this is where this is the Oracle, obviously. This is where we go when we need real answers to the questions in the various stories, of course.
Well, I'm such a professional that I actually have my producer in the chat room, and she has a private channel that she can,
of course,
indicate to me what I'm supposed to do and direct me.
Okay, so that's the filter or the sensor.
Yes, indeed. I like that he's getting the excuses in early. This is clearly the way forward.
She does keep me out of trouble usually.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or correct me when I've gone well off the track.
Yeah. Amen
Busy
to that.
girl, then,
yeah, absolutely. Yes. How does she fit it all in?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, lovely though this is. I suppose we ought to do some aviation-related news. What do you reckon, gents?
I think so. That's a very good idea. So we're going to start off this week with the commercial news segment. So if you're ready, Matt.
I am.
And if you're ready, Jeff.
I'm ready.
Then off we go. Right, well, starting off on the ttgmedia.com website, and it's a BA story, which is what I always like to hear.
What a surprise.
As long as it's a positive one.
Yeah. Good luck with that.
On this occasion, it is. And they're going to be expanding their presence at London City Airport by almost 20% next year, whilst adding a lot of new routes. And the airline will be taking an additional 4 Embraer E190 aircraft at its Thames hub, expanding its BA City Flyer fleet to 26 aircraft. In total, the new aircraft will add nearly 20% more BA seats at London City for 2019, allowing it for adding new destinations. And the first addition to be announced is a new year-round service to Rome, starting on November the 11th, with one-way hang luggage, I'm sure it means hand luggage, fares leading in from £55. That's pretty good. And it'll also going to add a extra weekday Zurich service, taking this route to 5 flights a week. And Tom Stoddart, managing director of BA City Flyer, says the 4 new aircraft shows our commitment to giving our customers an even bigger range of destinations and flight times. This growth will see the number of job opportunities in East London increase, with direct employment opportunities for pilots, cabin crew and engineers, as well as indirect roles for our various suppliers in and around the airport. And Luke Hayhope, General Manager, Commercial and Customer for BA City Flyer, added that the expansion at City Airport came after BA added 13% capacity in 2018. And BA has pledged to invest £4.5 billion over the next 5 years to guarantee customers Wi-Fi and onboard power, fitting out 128 long-haul aircraft with new interiors and taking delivery of 72 aircraft. We're not be doing long-haul from London City with the short length of that runway, but that's a moot point, maybe. But Richard Hill, who's Chief Commercial Officer at London City Airport, said that BA City Flyer is London City Airport's largest airline partner, and this investment is in 4 additional E-jets, demonstrates absolute commitment to its base at London's most central airport as continued growth we enter into 2019. So that's a good news story. And London City is a very popular airport, and it's got some great destinations and very fast check-in. That's the nice thing I like about that airport. It's about a 10-15 minute check-in, and they do a really good job there, although they are very space limited, but they do an excellent job there for such a small...
what's the maximum size aircraft that you can get into London then? London City?
That airport, it's a Airbus A318, which is the service they run from City Airport through Shannon to JFK.
Right.
So BA1.
BA1, it is, yeah, the old Concorde route number, and BA2 on the way back. They've actually cancelled the BA3 and 4 now, sadly. They can't actually find enough revenue to run that service twice a day. But that's an all business class service, stopping off in Shannon for a fuel stop, but more importantly as well, you do all the customs clearance there as well, and that's great because it means you enter the US as a domestic passenger.
I know when myself and Owen went to New York, he did exactly the same. He literally flew into Shannon and then did the pre-clearance and stuff through the other end. I mean, okay, we got lucky because we were landing at Newark, and to be fair, it really wasn't that bad at the time that we arrived. The biggest queue, believe it or not, was to actually get out of the airport. It wasn't so much passport control and things, but that is such especially a small. I'm surprised they don't do more of that actually. You know, where you do pre clearance, if you like, before you arrive in the States. I mean, any reason? Well,
that service is all business class, so I think it's about 38 seats on the A318. So that's all they can really take with the short runway length they've got at City Airport. It's all right coming home because you've got a prevailing tailwind usually, so fuel is not an issue. So they can do a direct JFK to London City on the way back. But so often actually at City Airport the weather is not fantastic, and certainly if the wind is not very clever, then you're probably going to Gatwick, because there's not much room for manoeuvre at City Airport if it all goes a bit wrong with the weather. So but having said that, it's been a very successful service for them. So and obviously the longer European routes as well works well from that airport.
Yeah, indeed. Anything to add to that, Sir Jeff?
Yeah, well, frankly, I'm kind of concerned about the couple that was found dead at Thomas Cook Regatta Hotel. I'm just looking at something in the
Oh,
sidebar.
that was in Egypt, wasn't it?
Article.
Yeah, I think that was in Egypt, if my memory serves on that
Yeah.
story. Yes, it was.
I'm
yes,
sorry.
very worrying because they apparently they were relatively fit, sort of slightly older, but they were both a very fit couple, and a terrible smell was found in the room and all that. And Thomas Cook moved everybody that was in there out. Basically, that's a rough summary of said story.
Sorry, I'm easily distracted.
No, that's fine. I feel your pain. So I'll move on, shall we? Well, story number 2 is the usual. Obviously, it's a Ryanair story, and yes, not perhaps the news everybody was hoping for. It's Lincolnshire Live is the rag that we're reading it from, and it says Ryanair baggage policy changes again. Here's all you need to know. So Ryanair is changing its luggage policy again, and this time it affects customers who bring a second bag on board a flight. Earlier this year, the company announced that it was changing rules so that only people who could take 2 cabin bags on board its plane were priority boarding passengers. That's very Irish of me, wasn't it? Priority. This meant that people who were non-priority passengers could take 1 small bag into the cabin and have a second bag put in the hold for free. But according to the Mirror Online, that is all about to change. Do you know, Nev, this is one of the things that really annoys me, and I don't know how you feel about this. So this is the Lincolnshire Live newspaper, or the Lincolnshire Herald, I think, is actually the newspaper that it comes from. But according to the Mirror Online, so they're reporting a story from another newspaper in their own newspaper.
Yes, I think they're a bit short of original material by the sound of things. Aren't
Right,
they? But,
yes.
On the plus side of things, at least they've identified the correct aircraft. So it is actually a
step in the right direction.
737-800, but that's
Right,
all they
okay.
fly. So you can't really get it wrong, can you?
Well, you say that. You make it sound like a challenge. Yes, but anyway, from the 1st of November, those who aren't priority boarding passengers will have to pay extra if they want a second bag at all. In fact, you'll need to fork out £8 for a bag up to 10 kilograms. Those who plan to check in a second bag anyway may find that this is good news, as you'll be able to pay £8 for a bag of up to 10 kilograms instead of the usual £25 for a bag of up to 20 kilograms. However, if you didn't plan to pay for the second bag and are a non-priority passenger, then you'll have to pay the extra £6 for priority boarding, £8 if you choose to add it to your booking later, or pay £8 to get it checked in the hold. The only other alternative is to stick it into a small bag. There is no point in chancing it at the gate either, as if you're not priority boarding, you will still be made to pay a fee to have your second bag placed in the hold. If you've already booked your flight, then the rules will still apply, as it affects all travel. From November, the company blamed the change on the number of people turning up at the gate with a second bag to place in the hold for free, which they say can cause delays of up to 25 minutes. They claim that under the new revised policy, this will speed up the boarding and cut final flight delays. Ryanair's Kenny Jacobs, we do love a statement from him, said that from November 2018, we're introducing a newer, lower cost 10 kilogram check bag and changing our carry-on bag policy to eliminate boarding/flight delays. Priority boarding customers will still be, anyway, we're repeating ourselves, so I won't bother with that. But yes, it's yes, I don't know. Perhaps a victim of its own success. Perhaps. I mean, I always remember a time where you were only ever allowed to bring one hold bag with you when it came to the low-cost airlines.
Well, do you remember
anyway.
several months ago I did a Nev's passenger experience with my friend Jackie, who lives in Sweden.
Yes.
And she commutes regularly from Stansted back to Sweden, many times a year. And she got it all worked out. She knows exactly what the rules are with Ryanair, what you can do, what you can't do. The trouble is they do change it on a fairly regular basis. And she said to me just last week, she said, Nev, I can't keep up with it anymore. I just don't know what I can take and what I can't take.
They're literally changing it almost every week. I mean, one of the, well, I don't know, maybe the moral of this story is flyjet too. Moving on.
Absolutely.
Indeed.
Yeah.
I think the next story is with Sir Captain of Jeff.
It is indeed, yes.
I believe you're correct. The headline from foxnews.com is Labor Day Travel. 16.5 million people expected to fly on U.S. airlines. Wow. All right. Industry Trade Organization Airlines for America, A4A, announced Wednesday that an estimated 16.5 million passengers are expected to fly worldwide on United States carriers over the week-long Labor Day travel period. Week-long? What do you mean by that? I thought it was just a long weekend. Okay. The 2018 Labor Day travel period, which runs through September 4th, okay, that's just the weekend, will see a 3.5% increase from the 16 million passengers who flew during same holiday period last year. They forgot a "the" in there. This Labor Day, U.S. airlines are enabling more passengers than ever before to take to the skies to see loved ones or visit exciting destinations because of improved accessibility for all, A4A Vice President John Heimlich said in a statement. From a daily perspective, A4A is reporting that airlines should be preparing for 2.36 million daily passengers, an increase of 79,000 people per day from 2017. To meet the demand, carriers will offer 2.76 million seats per day across their networks, a daily increase of 92,000 seats. 2018 has been an exceptionally busy year for air travel, with 20 out of the 25 busiest days ever recorded by the Transportation Safety Administration occurring so far this year. Heimlich continued, record numbers of travelers are taking to the skies in large part due to widespread affordability, with inflation-adjusted fares in the first quarter of 2018 averaging 8%, or $30 below Q1 2010. As for the busiest day, the report suggests August 31st will experience the most passenger traffic, which I believe is today, with an estimated 2.76 million passengers taking to the skies on U.S. airlines. Other busy days include August 30th and September 3rd, with 2.6 and 2.58 million passengers traveling, respectively. If passengers have to fly during the Labor Day travel period, the least busy days are expected to be September 1st and 2nd, which are also historically among the lightest days of the year.
Interesting. Do you think that a lot of the airlines take advantage of the Labor Day thing, Jeff, and hike the prices up?
I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, I guess they could. I'm not really in touch that much with fares and, how they fluctuate and how they set the fares and that kind of thing. So I would imagine if it's a travel period like, around the holidays and Labor Day weekend and that kind of thing, that they might, get a little bit more per ticket on average. Yeah. And I know that one of my co-hosts on the Airline Pilot Guy show, Dana, was actually out there flying today. He flew up from Atlanta to Providence, Rhode Island. So he was doing his part in carrying some of those 2.76 million passengers.
Okay.
And then I'll do the same on Monday, Labor Day itself.
I mean, obviously, when you get these busy periods that obviously, Labor Day is a popular day in the same way, I suppose, that things like, traveling like over the festive season here, like Christmas and things like that. I mean, that must be quite a sort of, I don't know, sort of nerve-wracking time for people like you, Jeff. I mean, is it you just want it to go smoothly and things, or is it, is there much more to think about, I suppose, when the skies are so busy?
Well, honestly, at Acme Airlines, the company for which I fly, which is a made-up name, by the way, we our passenger loads are so high anyway. I mean,
right.
you hardly notice any difference, actually.
Right.
But yeah, you tend to see the terminals, the concourses tend to be a little bit more crowded. You tend to see people that you don't normally see flying, and that can sometimes add to the frustration and confusion because when people only fly once per year or twice per year, they're not as savvy as the business travelers that are traveling all during the week.
Yeah, so things like security and stuff, I suppose, are much sort of heavier or harder going because, as you say, you've got the unseasoned traveller sort of doing their annual one-off fly to see Auntie Mabel in up north somewhere.
Right. Yeah, but otherwise, it's going to be pretty much like every other week, really. I mean, actually, the last portion of August here in the United States, you tend to see quite a little bit of a lull in flying, and it's kind of interesting because we're so used to getting our numbers, our performance numbers, with the number of passengers on board, and usually it's like every seat is filled. And the last couple of weeks, I've noticed that we were running loads of about 75-80% of what we normally do.
Wow.
So,
gosh, that is quite a jump. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's nice in a way. I mean, it's I mean, it's good to have full airplanes because that means the company is making the maximum amount of money. But on the other hand, it's kind of nice, especially for the flight attendants, to kind of get a little bit of a break, and you don't have a completely full airplane. And I think it's good for the passengers as well. You know, have a little bit of room to spread out. Perhaps you see another seat that looks a little bit nicer, you know, or better away from other people. You know?
Yeah, or somewhere, as you say, to sort of maybe lift up the armrest and sort of, you know, maybe take up 2 seats if you feel the need. Have a kip or something like that. Yeah, indeed. Nev, can I trouble you to take the next story, please?
You can. It's on the businessdailyafrica.com, and it says that British Airways, Emirates, Etihad and KLM have been voted the world's most family-friendly airlines. Toy company Play Like Mum compared 20 international airlines, looking at how easy they make the travel experience for families. The airlines were amongst the top 10, offered children their own free checked luggage allowance, a free allowance for a pushchair, car seat and complimentary special children meals on longer flights. We know how daunting the experience of flying with children can be. We're delighted with the great feedback that we've been hearing from families who are really pleased with the changes that we've made to their journeys, said Tom Stevens, BA's head of customer at Heathrow, which has introduced a permanent family check-in zone and security lane at its hub at Terminal 5. Most airlines have started catering for young flyers, offering them from storybooks, cartoon boarding passes to serving them food before adults. Passengers have been pushing for child-free flights, but many charge 10% of the paid fare for a child carried on their laps. Most parents travelling with more than one child face the difficult task of booking seats because airlines charge extra or for preferred or premium seats. And for Emirates, they said that an economy class traveller can pay to select a seat in advance or enjoy complimentary seat selection when online check-in opens 48 hours before the flight. The cost of the seat is based on whether you prefer to be seated at the front or the back of the aircraft, enjoy extra legroom, a great view from the window seat, or access from the aisle seat to get up and move around. Business class or first class passengers enjoy complimentary seat selection at any time. Etihad's general manager for Africa, George Maldry, said they do not charge to choose seats whilst booking on standard economy. The value add on family entourage raises competition amongst airlines that charge extra fees on tickets to cater for children. Even parents travelling with one child have had to seek permission for their children to sit on an empty seat, making it hectic to travel as a family. It's always a problem, isn't it? I think trying to budget for your holiday, this kind of thing, trying to make sure everybody's happy, and of course vacation holiday is a nice time hopefully, but if you have a bad experience at the airline, it's never off to a good start. But it sounds as though there's a few companies at least prepared to make a bit of an improvement to things.
That is true. Okay, moving on. The next story is on Fox News. That's fake news, everyone. Ryanair co-pilot faints before diverted landing. Quite how Fox News has found this out, I don't know. So a Ryanair captain was forced to land a diverted flight alone after the co-pilot passed out in the cockpit soon before the aircraft was set to touch down. Ryanair flight FR 3918 from London's Stansted Airport to Palmero in Italy was forced to make an emergency landing in the Sicilian city of Trapani due to a raging thunderstorm in the region, Express reported. This is another one, isn't it? Fox are reporting on the Daily Express, which obviously is another quality sort of fake news kind of outlet. A rep for Ryan, I'm going to get sued in a minute, aren't I? A rep for Ryanair confirmed on the 23rd of August that the incident took place to Fox News. According to the outlet, the unnamed co-pilot briefly fainted in the plane's cockpit just before the Boeing 737 was set to land. Oh, at least they got the right plane. Upon safely landing and deplaning, the co-pilot was hospitalised and examined, the Ryanair spokesman told Fox News. The first officer on this flight briefly fainted while the aircraft was being landed by the captain at Trapani. He was examined by the local medical staff and taken to hospital, where he was examined and released shortly thereafter without suffering any ill effects whatsoever, the rep said. The aircraft subsequently was inspected by Ryanair engineers and was cleared to return to service, the Express reports. So it's not the greatest news, I suppose, you want to hear, but then I'm guessing...
No, but it's, the same story. This is why there are two qualified pilots on the flight deck, isn't it? And I noticed a story just this week, I think it was from Boeing, which are actively pursuing single pilot operations.
Right.
It's all about the money.
Yeah,
this is true.
So I know you've got very, very strong views on this, Jeff.
I do. Yeah. It's crazy to even consider having fewer than 2 pilots on board aircraft with passengers.
Yeah.
And that's my very strong opinion, and it's shared by many of us, because we've seen what can happen with the airplanes and fellow crew members. I should add, though, on this story, according to the Aviation Herald, which is usually a pretty
quality
reliable
outlet
source, on August 28th, 2018, Ryanair's chief pilot added that the first officer did not suffer a physical trauma and did not hit his head, although there were some stories out there that there was a lot of turbulence on final, and that turbulence caused the first officer's head to hit something in the cockpit, and that's why he passed out. But apparently, according to Ryanair's chief pilot, he did not hit his head, but felt unwell and was unable to continue duties.
Right. Okay. Well, I mean, this if ever there was an advert, if you like, for making sure that there was more than one person on the flight deck, one could argue, all right, no serious incident took place, briefly passed out, etc., etc. But let's be honest, somebody who is flying the plane could pass out not because of anything they've done, just one of those things. I mean, there are incidences where people pass out with no explanation. And you can be perfectly fit and perfectly healthy, and suddenly you take a turn for the worse unexpectedly. And if you're flying an aeroplane on your own, solo, with a load of passengers behind you, that could be quite catastrophic.
Yes, it could.
Okay, good, right.
Very understated.
Yeah,
point.
Indeed. It's I genuinely don't know if I can see them doing that, certainly in my lifetime. I mean, I think it might be something perhaps in the future that will be a real problem, but I'd like to sort of think that it was never likely to happen, really. There is something that makes me feel quite uncomfortable about there only being one person in the cockpit. Especially after... Was it that German wings, Jeff? Not Jeff, sorry, Nev. The German wings, wasn't that the one where it got flown into... the plane got flown into a mountain, wasn't it, by a rogue pilot?
Yes, the captain was locked out of the cockpit. I mean, I think the good thing I would say about the commercial airline industry generally worldwide is that in most large countries, the pilots' unions have considerable clout when it comes to the operation of these aircraft and the terms and conditions that they will accept. And I think that's a very good thing, because it obviously deals with pay and conditions and that kind of thing. But also there's a big safety piece as well, and I'm very glad to see and hear, certainly in the US and in Europe and Canada and many other places as well, that the union representation is so strong, and therefore I think there's a much better chance of keeping 2 people in the cockpit at least for the foreseeable future. I hope.
Yeah, I mean, as a nervous passenger as well, I mean, that's the only sort of place I can go back to with this, is that as a nervous passenger, the thought of there only being one pilot in a very large aircraft in charge of so many people does make me feel quite uncomfortable. I know the cabin crew there obviously will do whatever they can to look after them, but at the end of the day, they aren't the ones in the cockpit flying the aeroplane. I don't know. I really hope that there is never a situation where we have only one person flying a commercial jet. I don't have a problem with GA, but then most GA planes have got sort of 4, maybe 6 people tops in them, and I do feel that's a very sort of different situation, to having hundreds of lives behind you.
And also, all the current aircraft are specifically built for at least 2 crew operation. All the automation that we see in these commercial jet transports these days, all of it has been designed around a 2 crew operation. And it's going to take if they are serious about it, a single pilot operation at any point, it's going to take a complete redesign of the aircraft. Flight deck, I would have thought. Jeff, do you agree with that?
I agree. Or they'll have to retrofit it in some way, and then of course newer generation airplanes coming off the line could be designed, with that in mind to begin with. But as Matt said, and I agree with him, I think the chances of us seeing single pilot airliners with passengers is not going to be something that we're going to see. Hopefully we'll never see it. But if we do, it's not going to be something we're going to see in the near future.
No, I sincerely hope not. I sincerely hope not. Okay, who is next? I've lost track.
Next is Captain Jeff.
I think it's my turn.
Excellent.
Yes, quite an interesting story here.
This from news.com.au. The pilots of a Malaysia Airlines flight didn't have accurate speed data while taking off from Brisbane because someone left the covers over the plane's speed probes.
Whoa.
Oopsie. The Australian Transport Safety Bureau has told all operators to review procedures for removing the covers so no other planes are put at risk. The covers, which are designed to keep insects away from speed probes, were not removed before the A330 took off on July 18th, leaving the crew without accurate data about how fast it was going. ATSB Chief Commissioner Greg Hood said that the 3 covers were in place on the aircraft as it pushed back from the terminal as the plane accelerated down the runway. Was on the aircraft as it pushed back and as the plane accelerated down the runway. Okay. It's limited. Go ahead. Are you trying to say something?
No. I was more commenting. I don't know whether maybe it's because it's it's Australian, isn't it? They speak differently to us anyway. It's fine.
Oh.
Yeah.
I think it was just a reading error on my part. I think.
No. It's definitely not your fault. I would never ever say for a moment that
it could not possibly be my fault.
Correct answer. Very good. Yeah.
Anyway, this guy, the ATSB Chief Commissioner Greg Hood, said this limited the amount of critical information, that was available to the flight crew during takeoff. The plane reached 10,000 feet before it returned to Brisbane, landing safely with no one hurt. Mr. Hood said it was a serious incident, and the ATSB's investigation was not yet over. We'll be focusing specifically on the procedures for the flight crew and ground crew in relation to the pre-flight checks on aircraft, he said. Investigators are also focusing on the cockpit warnings received by the crew as they sped down the runway. The ATSB has issued a safety notice to all airlines to review their procedures and make sure covers cannot be accidentally left in place again. And they have some nice little pictures of here of the pitot probe covers.
Indeed, yes. No, I did put some of them up while you were chatting. So
okay.
Yeah. Oh,
and,
here
you'll note that they have some burn marks on them because these pitot probes are heated, and they do get very, very hot. And this is something you'll note that they are a very bright red color, and the reason for that, of course, is so that when a pilot is doing their walk around, their pre-flight exterior inspection, and if they're using vigilance, they'll notice that the pitot probes have these bright red covers on them, and that is to alert that person to say, maybe I should take those covers off.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, I'm not trying to reduce the seriousness of this at all, but of course, this is on the captain's side of the aircraft, isn't it? So there is a duplicate set of pitot probes on the first officer's side.
Correct.
I would imagine. So obviously there's a disagreement straight away between the 2 speed indicators. And I'm just wondering, I'm not sure, this is an A330 obviously, but what do you think about on other aircraft types, Jeff? Do you think there's some sort of intelligence on board the aircraft if there's a speed disagree between the 2 systems?
Yeah, well, I think that, well, first of all, if you missed these things, did the article say here that it was just the one side and the other side didn't have them on? I didn't see that part.
No, I just kind of made that up really because it just talks about the captain's side throughout. It doesn't mention
Okay.
anything about the first officer's side.
So these probes were actually on the captain's side, but on most of the airplanes that I've flown, the probes that are actually on the captain's side exterior are the pitot and static and all the stuff for the first officer's instruments, and then my probes are. It may be different with Airbus, but it doesn't really matter. If it was the case that only one side had the covers on and the other side did not, then of course you would definitely have a discrepancy, and that would, I would imagine, be noted early on in the takeoff, and before the high-speed realm of the abort envelope. And apparently they didn't really work this out until they were beyond that point, when they were in the high-speed realm and decided to continue the takeoff and actually continue the flight. Now we do have procedures that help us in the situation where we have unreliable airspeed and other indications that rely on pitot-static systems. For instance, pitch pictures, or setting your pitch at a certain attitude on the attitude indicator, and certain power settings that will give you certain performance, and that's called a control performance kind of concept, where you know that if you do this and you do this, then you should get this performance. And so and those are things that we learn about and practice in simulators and such, but it still, I would imagine, be something that would be quite a surprise, and might take a while to kind of work out and get everything under control.
Yeah, absolutely. That's interesting stuff.
Yeah,
so I would imagine that these pilots, especially the one that was doing the exterior inspection, will have to talk to somebody about explaining why he or she did not see these things on.
Tea and biscuits with the chief pilot, maybe.
Yeah,
yes.
indeed. I mean, is the solution to this making them, high vis and bright yellow, so that they seem quite sort of obvious to miss against. They seem quite difficult to miss, if you like, against a white fuselage of an aeroplane. I just, if it was painted red, I could understand why it might sort of blend into the background, but
yeah. Well, or you can be like many airlines out there, such as mine, where we don't put covers on our pitot probes and other static ports and that kind of thing. Mainly because the risk of forgetting them and getting into this kind of situation is greater than the
damage,
possibility of some insects or whatever getting in there. So I don't know what the percentages of airlines around the world that do use the covers and do not use the covers, but at Acme Airlines, I've never seen a cover on.
I mean, I could understand it if it was, say, being taken out of commission for a couple of weeks, or it was going into the workshop for maintenance or something like that. I can understand why you would put those on them. But as you say, I mean, most of these aircraft, they're spending probably 12. Maybe 12 to 16 hours on the ground before somebody else gets in it and flies somewhere else. They're never on the ground for long, as you say.
Right. And one of the things, we've had instances in the past where it's been a very, very long time, but occasionally an airplane will be scheduled for a deep cleaning, exterior deep cleaning, and to prevent water being ingested into static ports and pitot ports or pitot tubes, they'll actually, put covers on, or in the case of the static ports, they'll actually put tape over the, it's kind of a flat port on the side of the aircraft with little pinholes. And that's one of the things we specifically look for when we're doing our exterior walk around, that, there isn't tape left on these things. And it was a 727, in fact, back, I don't know, probably close to 30 years ago, that took off from, I think, Fort Myers or Sarasota, heading somewhere, probably to Atlanta. And they immediately after takeoff realized that their pitot-static instruments were giving them bad information, and they diverted to Orlando, landed there, and then they discovered upon landing, or the exterior inspection upon landing, that the static ports had been covered.
Right.
Maybe they took off from Tampa, because I think Tampa is one of those bases where they do that kind of cleaning procedure. It's a maintenance base. So I always think about that incident, and when I'm doing my walk around, and I always pay close attention to the static ports to make sure that somebody hasn't covered them with something.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose playing devil's advocate, it is very easy to perhaps become a little bit complacent in your walk around check, perhaps. But I suppose that's this sort of highlights the need for not doing so. Yeah,
complacency is deadly in many different ways.
Yeah, agreed, very much so.
Or can be.
Yeah, absolutely.
My last two wives have mentioned that.
Oh dear, here we go.
Anyway, moving on.
Deadly to your relationship.
And my bank account.
Indeed, yes. Abort, everyone. Right.
So moving on swiftly to theindependent.co.uk. And you know how we try and steer away from the Brexit discussions?
The what now?
That's it.
Are we having one?
No,
are we?
We're right back. Carlos has chosen a story for us.
That's because he's not here. That's why.
Yes. And it says that 7 months before the UK is due to leave the European Union, the Independent has identified 10 Cinderella flights. These planes will depart from 5 British airports on the evening of the 29th of March 2019, whilst the UK is still a member of the EU. But they will all arrive at their destination after Brexit, which is due to take place at 11 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. As the clock strikes midnight Central European Time, these flights will cease to be intra-EU services under the Open Skies Agreement and become flights from outside the European Union. Passengers with British passports will be full EU citizens when they board the flights from Heathrow, Gatwick, Luton, Doncaster and Liverpool. But by the time they arrive, they could be classed as third country nationals with no automatic right of admission to the European Union and the prospect of strict customs checks. First touchdown in the post-Brexit EU will be the BA flight from Heathrow to Athens. It leaves the UK's busiest airport at 7:25 p.m. and is scheduled to arrive in the Greek capital at 1:05 a.m. local time, just 5 minutes after the Brexit deadline. The one-way fare is currently £253. Irrelevant.
Wow.
But they put it in. The next two post-Brexit arrivals are due in at 11:30 p.m. UK time. SAS from Heathrow to Stockholm and Wizz Air from Luton to its Budapest base. The warmest welcome, in terms of temperature at least, is likely to be in Malta, where an Airbus belonging to Air Malta arrives from Heathrow at 11:40 GMT. You can tell who's chosen this story, can't you?
Yes, indeed. The mention of Malta was the giveaway here for me personally, but there we are. I mean,
the story goes on in some considerable detail, although actually I'm not trying to start a Brexit conversation. I really am not, but I honestly think that even if they miss the deadline for all this in March, which they probably will by the sound of things, I think this is going to get properly sorted out one way or the other. I just do not believe there's going to be big trouble in the aviation sector, certainly within the European region. I really don't.
Much about nothing.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, are you familiar, are you aware of Brexit where you are, Jeff? I mean...
I have no idea what's going on over there.
No, well, no, neither do we. You're not alone there. It was just more like...
Of course we're fully aware of the big vote and the things that are happening and the people that are freaking out about things. And the sky is falling,
Right,
and,
good, yes, lovely. That sounds about right. Yes, I think you've got a handle on it. Yeah, that's pretty much it. We are, I do keep saying to Carlos and Nev actually, and I think we will have to do one at some point. We are planning a sort of Brexit-related special at some point, probably a little bit nearer the deadline when we know a few more details and facts, because the long and the short of it is our own government has no idea what's going to happen when said deadline passes. So I think there will be time for discussion, and Pip has already expressed excitement about participating in said
Yeah, I think if we're both on the same show, someone's going to have to referee it. Definitely.
Yes, no, that's all right. So we may need to borrow either Auntie Liz or Dr. Steph, I think, for that one, because
Yes,
you know,
we need some distinct mediation there.
Yeah,
it could
indeed.
go off the
That's
rail.
one I don't think I'll be watching.
Right.
Good,
Oh, that's no
Good
fun.
call, this. Good call.
Yeah, I don't blame you. So, yes, so watch this space, ladies and gentlemen. A Brexit special will be coming at some point. But as I say, a bit nearer the deadline when we may have some actual facts to share with you rather than this continuous hearsay, which I think we're all getting a bit bored of. Anyway, shall I move on? Let's get out of this dangerous cul-de-sac. And we move on to the Aviation Herald, which was mentioned.
That's more like it.
Yes, absolutely. A bit of quality aviation journalism going on, and it's actually a sort of difficult story, really. It's involving an accident. The capital, Beijing, A320 at, is it Macau, on the 28th of August? Macau, sorry, 28th of August 2018, dropped nose wheels on a hard touchdown. Now, Carlos was actually showing me some of these pictures when we were, and when I finish reading the story, I'll pop them up for you. So a Capital Airlines Beijing Airbus A320-200, registration Bravo 6952, performing flight Juliet Delta 5759 from Beijing to Macau with 157 passengers and 9 crew, was on final approach from Macau runway 34 into the flare already when the aircraft encountered a wind shear and touched down hard. The crew initiated a go-around, received indications of left engine CFM56 failure and suspecting gear damage, declared Mayday. The aircraft diverted to, is it Shenzhen? Is that right? Shenzhen in China. Sorry, I'm not very good at these. And landed on runway 34 about 40 minutes after the rejected landing. The aircraft became disabled on the runway with both nose wheels missing from the nose gear strut. Runway 34 was closed for about 3 hours until the aircraft was moved off the runway. Runway 15/33 remained operational. The missing wheels were recovered from Macau's runway. China's CAAC reported the aircraft attempted landing at Macau at 11:16 L. What does that mean?
Local.
Oh, I see. Very good. Yes, 11:16 local. 03:16 Zulu. I know what the Z meant. But it was unsuccessful. The crew went around. The crew declared Mayday and requested emergency services on standby in Shenzhen, reporting possible landing gear failure. The aircraft landed in Shenzhen's runway 34 at around about 11:58 local. That's 3:58 in the morning Zulu time. It was subsequently found both nose wheels were missing. The aircraft was evacuated. 5 passengers were taken to hospital with minor injuries. Shenzhen's runway 34 was temporarily closed. CAA Shenzhen have an open investigation into the occurrence. I won't go because the next bit of it is all about DETA's data that means absolutely nothing to me whatsoever.
Well, I was just going to ask actually whether, if Jeff's got the story up here, whether you could sort of decipher some of the METARs that's reported at Macau and Shenzhen.
Yes, I can. But before I do that, that little paragraph that Matt is skipping is actually a very important one because basically I'll give you the condensed version.
Okay.
It came down, hit hard at 7.7 degrees nose up and 2.4 Gs. That's 2.4 times the natural force of gravity. They touched down a second time at 15 degrees nose up. So imagine an airplane with the nose is very, very high up, the tail very far down, and they hit the runway again at 3.4 Gs. It's a lot of G forces, hard. The aircraft bounced again, and the third time they touched down, the nose gear, the nose was down 7.7 degrees. So it was pointing down and hit the nose wheel first before any other part of the landing gear system on the airplane.
Wow.
That's what sheared the wheels off. And
that's quite an angle, isn't it? That's quite a degree of I don't. Again, explain the sort of the wind shear thing. I mean, I assume it's basically a very large gust of wind that is what sort of screwed this up. Essentially, sort of.
It can be a large gust of wind. It can be a very large gust, like a increasing tailwind, which basically all of a sudden means the wings are without any lift momentarily, or the lift is severely impacted. And the big thing here is that you have to analyze everything early on in your final approach and landing, and then you have to make the decision whether to continue or to go around. So, sorry, we talked about this actually on our last APG, which has not yet been published, and we had a good discussion about it on our show as well. But the METARs here that you were referring to, Nev, looks like the winds were about 17 knots, and actually varying quite significantly, anywhere from 170 degrees to 240 degrees. So they're shifting all over the place direction-wise, and but then they're strong. There's a light rain shower in this first METAR, and cumulonimbus clouds, which is what you're going to have with thunderstorms and such. And then the next one also talks about the variability of the direction of the wind, except this one is the wind showing quite a bit lighter, only 4 knots. But there's also a temporary mention in the weather observation where the winds are anywhere from 15 gusting to 25 knots in thunderstorms. So it was not a nice day.
No,
not
it's
good conditions.
It's almost your worst nightmare, isn't it? Because I suppose, again, in said situation, everything happens so fast.
Yes.
A sort of sudden drop in wind and stuff, and it's the incident is happening, if you like, almost before you're that aware of it, perhaps.
Yeah. So the thing that I took away from this, and if this is accurate, that paragraph that it has all the information about the pitch angles and the G-forces, the very last sentence, it says, about 5 seconds after the third bounce, the go-around was initiated.
Right.
The go-around should have been initiated either before they touched down the first time or after the first bounce, not after the third bounce. So they were trying to salvage a very, very bad landing, and the decision, I think, was made too late to go around.
And also, do you think, Jeff, that presumably on this aircraft there would be automatic spoiler deployment with the weight on wheels?
Yes. So
actually that could have given them quite a serious problem on the go around as well if they weren't careful, I would imagine.
Yes, I'm not sure exactly. I've never flown the Airbus myself. I don't know exactly what's required to get the auto spoilers to deploy, but certainly part of that is strut compression on the main landing gear. Some airplanes, it's strut compression, in other words, touching down and the struts compressing. Also, wheel spin up. I'm not sure in this case if they would have gotten the spin up on the first hard bounce, possibly. But you're right. Once the auto spoilers deploy, it can be quite a tricky situation. But regardless, I think the Airbus, and people that are listening to the show will be able to correct me if I'm wrong. If you advance the I'm not going to call them the wrong thing, Captain Al. The not the thrust levers, but the what do we call them? Darn it.
Throttles or
throttle? No, actually, maybe no. Thrust levers is correct.
Yeah,
thrust
excellent.
levers, I call them throttles.
Yeah, he'll write to us.
advancing-
Don't worry, it'll be fine. He'll send us a tweet. Don't worry.
The thrust levers into the toga position, the takeoff go around position. I think will retract the spoilers, but I'm not positive about that. Again, I'm not qualified to fly this airplane. So.
It's worth noting here, actually, Lee's just put his phone in front of me, basically. It's a comment in the chat room here from Carlos Stebbings, who is obviously very busy this evening, saying that they were attempting a pilot pip seeding landing. That was what the problem was. I'm just trying to get him into trouble, that's all. How did I do?
Yeah, Nico says, so what you're saying is you cannot always go around, Jeff?
Oh, dear. Well, yeah, indeed, yes. As you say, perhaps they should have done it in this particular incident.
Yeah, I wasn't there. It's hard to,
Add insult to injury, the airport probably charged them 3 landing fees.
Yes.
Jen certainly would have, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, quite right.
Absolutely.
Especially given the damage, of course, if you've lost a runway for 3 or 4 hours while they clear up the mess. But there we are. I mean, seriously, obviously, I mean that must have done quite substantial damage to the runway, just for no other reason than because the like when they landed with no wheels at all. I mean, that must have done some serious damage to the tarmac.
That was at at Shenzhen.
Yeah.
But Macau, I'm sure that I know that they had to shut down the runway for a while because there was all kinds of debris on the runway.
Yeah, indeed. It's yes, it's not one to be repeated. I think the particular incident, as you say, and perhaps if the data that we have in front of us is to be believed, perhaps the incident wasn't handled as as well as it could have been. Maybe that's.
I should also point out, though, that they are probably going to be able to use the airplane again. Is that correct?
Yes, I had heard that actually, Jeff, on a separate sort of story.
Okay, so
really?
it was then technically a good landing.
Right. Okay. Yes. Okay.
Because it's the airplane.
Yeah, it didn't write the aeroplane off. Therefore, it's a good landing. Yes. Okay. Fair enough. Isn't that from the School of Airplane, the film? Isn't it?
It may be. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Indeed, it was a good landing because it didn't write off the aircraft. Great news. Okay. I think we should move on.
Yes.
I think it's Captain Jeff next.
Oh boy. Okay. You know what? I think I just did. I just closed the window that had the news story in it, so I'm going to try to retrieve it.
Yeah.
There we go. Using my shortcut. There we go. Is this the one that says want to work in Asia?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. One profession is hiring in a big way. This is from CNBC, another source of fake news. If you're looking for a new job, consider packing your bags, training as a pilot, and moving to Asia. According to U.S. aircraft manufacturer Boeing, which says that the Asia-Pacific region is set to go on a hiring spree for hundreds of thousands of new airline staff over the next 2 decades. Rising wealth and growing travel demand means that new staff, including 240,000 pilots, 242,000 technicians, and 317,000 cabin crew, will be required across the region by 2037, a new report by Boeing found. China is forecast to lead that boon, requiring half of the nearly 800,000 anticipated new hires, followed by Southeast Asia and South Asia. And then they have a breakdown of all the different requirements from the different regions, and you'll be able to see that. I'm sure you'll have this in the show notes so they can click on it and look at it themselves.
Yeah, no problem.
The new jobs are likely to be primarily with commercial airlines. However, as affluence in the region grows, growth in demand for other types of aviation, such as private luxury jets, can be expected. Strong demand for pilots in the region continues, and we expect that this will continue for the next several years, according to Keith Cooper, Vice President of Training and Professional Services for Boeing Global Services. The hiring spree is expected to breathe new life into the aviation industry as a large number of pilots from the baby boomer generation, I'm one of those, are set to retire over the coming decade. It could also be some way in addressing the gender gap in the aviation industry, which has traditionally been one of the most pronounced. Currently, in the United States, women account for just 7% of all pilots and less than 10% of other technical positions, according to 2017 data from the Federal Aviation Administration's Aeronautical Center. Meanwhile, women make up close to 80% of flight attendant roles. So I guess what they're saying is we need more women mechanics and pilots and fewer cabin crew. I don't know.
I think we just need more of everyone. I think it's fair to say that. I mean, there is quite a well-known pilot shortage in most Western regions. Certainly, I can't vouch for sort of the Eastern regions, but there does seem to be a genuine shortage. So if you can afford it, I suppose is where we go with that particular statement. Then there is a job for you waiting out there if you can afford to become a pilot.
Well, if the shortage gets bad enough, it's not going to be the question of whether you're going to be able to afford to get the training required to get hired. Is going to be the airlines are going to be paying for it. I mean, if it gets that bad.
True.
And this is another reason why the aircraft manufacturers and airline managers around the world are praying that somebody will crack the nut and make it so that, flying an airplane with just one pilot or no pilots will happen. I mean, it's a pipe dream in my opinion, but you can see why they're kind of concerned about this, because that's a huge number of requirements for pilots and technicians and cabin crew.
Well, I suppose, and yes, if you are literally in a situation where you only require one pilot to fly the aeroplane, you've suddenly got double the amount of pilots available to you.
Exactly.
Yeah, I still don't like it. I don't care.
I agree.
I want two. Thank you. I'm greedy like that. I would like two in cockpits at all times.
I mean, I remember when I started my career that we had several airplanes that had three pilots.
Right.
Or some airlines worked it as two pilots and a flight engineer, but in my airline, we were all pilots. And when they made the move to go from 3 crew members to 2, I and many others looked at it as a decrease in the safety margin. And I still hold that that's true. And going from 2 to 1 is just
insane.
It's not doable.
Yeah,
it's stupid.
It's just absolutely stupid. Yeah, I'm using a slightly odd analogy here, but the DLR here in London is a train service that is capable of running completely autonomously. It doesn't need to have guards or train drivers or operators or anything like that on the actual train to drive it, and they have literally I've seen them do it. They lift up a panel and they sit there and pretend to drive the train because it makes people feel more comfortable, because there is a guard or someone on there, and they're literally just pretending to drive the train. So the train itself is actually 100% autonomous. It doesn't need to have any kind of human input whatsoever. But the general public do not feel comfortable on a train that runs on its own with no one else on it, with nobody sort of taking responsibility.
Yeah, the train that I use to take from where I live to the airport and back is the same kind of a system that is mostly autonomous, although I think the train driver does open and close the doors.
Oh yes, yes, very important job. Yes,
but they're up there, and I think pretty much the thing is kind of doing its own thing. Once they hit the button that says it's okay to go.
Yeah, I have it on good authority that most of the London Underground operates in exactly the same way. But there we are. I don't know. It's the same, isn't it? It's a fail-safe, I suppose. If you've got somebody, if nothing else, you've got somebody else there to raise the alarm if something goes wrong. I mean, this is the thing. I mean, if you've had the person in the cockpit who's the only person in the cockpit, flying. I mean, the cabin crew aren't going to be aware that anything's wrong until the plane starts to sort of. If it suddenly does something it's not supposed to. I mean, if it's in sort of autopilot and keeps flying, I mean, it would be a very long time before somebody realised something was wrong, perhaps. Yeah. Anyway, we're going back to an earlier story. We should probably move on.
Yes.
Okay. Forward we go.
Yeah. This next story is on the Jewish Link of New Jersey website. And this is, I think, an interesting story because so often you've got aircraft carriers around the world transiting countries and trying to find landing rights with countries that are barely speaking to each other. This is another one of those, I'm afraid. And major British and French airlines announced on Thursday that they plan to halt flights to Iran from September, citing business reasons. The decisions come in the wake of US President Donald Trump's reimpositions of sanctions upon Iran. BA said that it was suspending its London to Tehran service as the operation is currently not commercially viable. The airline, owned by Spanish-registered IAG, said that its last outbound flight from London to Tehran will be on September 22nd, and its last inbound flight from Tehran will be on September the 23rd. Air France will stop flights from Paris to Tehran from September the 18th because of the line's weak performance, an airline spokesman said. As the number of business customers flying to Iran has fallen, the connection is not profitable anymore. Air France is part of the Air France KLM group, and the Dutch airline KLM announced in July that it was halting flights to Tehran. German airline Lufthansa said it had no plans to stop flying to Iran at this time. We are closely monitoring these developments. For the time being, Lufthansa will continue to fly to Tehran as scheduled, and no changes are envisaged, it said in an emailed statement. The airline's decision was welcomed by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and today we learned that 3 major carriers, BA, KLM and Air France, have discontinued their activities in Iran. This is a good thing. More airlines should follow. More will follow, because Iran should not be rewarded for its aggression in the region, for its attempt to spread terrorism far and wide, Netanyahu told a news conference during a visit to Lithuania. Iran's ambassador to London expressed regret at British Airways' decision. Considering the high demand, the decision by the airline is regrettable, he tweeted. I think it's one of those things that these things come and go as events change around the world, don't they? And 1 minute everything's just working a treat, and the next minute there's big problems and sanctions between various countries, and it affects everything. Actually, it affects obviously the commerce between countries, but it also affects the transport links as well, and that's pretty important, I think.
I can't help but feel that there seems to be more falling out going on between the US and its otherwise usually quite sort of understanding trade partners since a recent election.
That may have had some effects. Yeah.
It's just, there seems to be a lot of falling out going along that I'm pretty sure wasn't occurring before, let's put it that way.
Yeah, and I think
Go ahead.
No, after you, Jeff. Sorry.
No. I was just saying that this is a country that has publicly stated that its goal is to wipe out the nation of Israel.
Yes.
So that's not a very
It's not. It's quite a hostile approach, isn't it?
It's a little hostile.
A
little harsh.
Yes. Yeah. Not sending out any teddy bears anytime soon.
I'm not saying everybody there believes that themselves.
No.
But,
I don't think anybody here believes that either. But it's just like. Yes, it's not all warm and fuzzy, is it?
No.
We don't like that. Anyway, before we get sued by probably, a part of me is actually thinking I would love Plain Talking UK to actually end up as one of the things that Donald Trump tweets about. How cool would that be?
Get listening figures up. Perhaps.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Yeah, there'll be a lot of people listening to us who will wonder what on earth we're all about. But there we are. There's a lot of people listening right now who wonder what on earth we're all about. But that's another story entirely. Okay, who's going to sit next?
I believe it's my turn.
Oh, excellent.
Yes. And I've been listening to this show for quite some time, and I'm still trying to figure out what it's all about.
Rude. That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just joking, of course. This is from aerospace-technology.com. Lauda motion or Lauda motion? How would you pronounce that? Lauda. Lauda. Okay. Lauda motion to double Airbus fleet to 18 aircraft in 2019. Austria-based budget airline Lauda Motion is set to double the size of it. Oh, I just read that. In order to promote growth, Lauda Motion is expected to implement a number of initiatives, including the addition of new aircraft livery to reflect its Austrian heritage and establish new offices in the capital city of Vienna to accommodate additional staff. The company will also appoint Christian Euler-Rohle as personnel director from 1 September. Lauda Motion CEO Andreas Gruber said, Lauda Motion now faces the future with great confidence, backed by the enormous financial strength of Ryanair, our new majority shareholder and Europe's largest airline. Lauda Motion has already achieved load factors over 90% in its first summer season, thanks to the efforts of over 500 Lauda Motion colleagues, or colleagues, most people pronounce it as. These 9 additional 2019 Airbus deliveries ensure that Lauda Motion will grow again by at least 20% in 2019 to 5 million guests per annum. I guess that's what the P/A stands for, right? The company also revealed plans to roll out more low-fare flights for customers based in Austria and Germany. Ryanair's newly completed acquisition is based on an agreement reached in March this year. Under the deal, Ryanair paid €50 million to buy a 75% stake in Lauda Motion, but will provide an additional €50 million for startup and operating costs in the first year. There you have it.
That's
good to see some growth going on there. And
that new livery there in that photo, I don't know if
Yeah, no, I did
Matt
pop
was
it up. Yeah, give me.
showing it. It's kind of hard to tell what airline that is.
Yeah,
Do you see that?
So is this a sort of like a collaborative sort of effort between Ryanair and this company, or is it just his excuse almost to I don't know, open up another airline? It just seems very odd to find, the head of Ryanair essentially sort of thumbs upping another airline. This is just, I don't know.
Well,
It's all becoming part of his empire.
Yeah, and it's going to be they're taking a 75% share in the airline. So
right, okay, that's quite a big share.
So, yeah.
Indeed. Okay. All right. Well, there we are, I suppose. So I'll take the last story then, if I may, gents. And the headline in the Post and Courier website is that the Dreamliners are stacking up at Boeing's North Charleston site. So a growing number of 787 Dreamliners are crowding the flight line at Boeing Company's North Charleston campus, with analysts pointing to supply delays as one of the causes. Is this one of the ones that's got the problem with the engines as well?
Yes. You have to imagine Captain Nick reading this out.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No. Let's pretend that's not happening. So a growing number of, done that. But so the flight line. I'm not doing very well here. We'll move on to the next paragraph. The flight line has been increasingly crowded as Dreamliners are rolled out of the main assembly building and parked up in every spot that is available, including the North Charleston Delivery Centre. Seth said on his All Things 787 website. Sheth, I think is how that's pronounced, who tracks Dreamliner production activity, said at least 6 planes have been delayed because of slow deliveries of seats or engines, with 2 more planes held up at the request of customers. Another jet for Air China has been sitting in storage for unknown reasons. The aircraft was assembled over 5 months ago, but it hasn't had its engines installed. Boeing is downplaying the existence of any problems at the South Carolina plant. Deliveries can vary from month to month for a variety of reasons, including customer preferred timing, said a Boeing spokesman. We remain on track to meet our full year delivery commitments. Boeing delivered 136 Dreamliners to customers in 2017. The company, did not announce a target for 787 deliveries this year, but said that it expects all commercial plane deliveries to increase by about 6.8% over last year's record numbers. Cowen Group analysts predict 144 Dreamliner deliveries in 2018. Boeing plans to increase its monthly 787 production rate to 14 from 12 in 2019, split between North Charleston and its other Dreamliner assembly point in Everett, Wash. So Sheth's production numbers show the North Charleston campus delivered 3 planes in July, and he expects the same total this month. That compares with 7 deliveries in June and 6 in May. Unless Charleston deliveries pick up very soon, Boeing may have to look for new and innovative ways to store undelivered 787s. The Scott Hamilton, who's the editor of the aviation website Leham News and Comment, said Boeing's overall supply chain is in meltdown, pointing to dozens of 737s parked at the aerospace's giant Renton Wash site because they are awaiting parts. Oh dear, that's slightly worrying, isn't it? The story goes on, but I mean, you basically get the gist. There are some issues with it would appear that there are some issues with getting certain parts for aircraft.
Yes, I think the problem, well, obviously, from a cash flow point of view, obviously, Boeing would like to deliver these aircraft and get paid for them. So apart from the slightly awkward problem of where to store these things, it must be giving them a big cash flow problem as well with deliveries.
It's certainly giving some accountants somewhere a bit of a headache, I have no doubt. It's, I mean, are those are those financial penalties going to be passed on to the suppliers causing the issue, though? I don't know.
I would hope so.
I think Rolls-Royce certainly have 1 or 2.
Right, yes. They've got a couple of claims going against them in the foreseeable future. Yes, indeed. Yes, but we'll gloss over that and pretend Captain Nick is just a figment of all our imaginations. How does that sound?
I'm a little disappointed, though. I was there is a picture here of several 787s on the North Charleston ramp, and the headline is that the 787s are stacking up. and they don't look like they're stacked up at all.
You were sort of hoping for
not
one
even
on top of the other, yes.
Hmm.
Indeed.
Bless the media.
Yes,
bless them.
Well done. Yes, they are. Well, at least the ones in the pictures are actual 787s, though. That I am slightly excited about. Yeah,
Very impressed.
Actually, didn't they do well?
Good on the Post and Courier.
Yes, indeed. Yes, well done.
Well, that's where we bring to an end the commercial news segment. So thanks everybody for your contributions there, and thanks to Carlos for putting all those stories together for us. Up next is the interview that I did with one of our joint listeners, actually, Jeff, a chap called Dr. Bo Abrahamsen. And he was over in Oxford just last week, just 15 miles from where I live here. And he said, do you fancy meeting up? Because I'm coming over for a bit of a social event. And I said, yes, that's a good idea, because we just happened to be in Oxford at the same time. So I took the camera gear with me, and I thought we'd have a chat. And the weather was just one of those really nice days down by the Thames when it was perfect. So let's have a listen to his chat with me. Well, hello there. So here we are down by the Thames in Oxford, and look who I've bumped into. It's Dr. Bo Abrahamsen, who is over here for some social activity. Is that right?
That's right. I'm going to a wedding anniversary, so I'm not here for work this time. I've often been here for work, but this is pure pleasure. I don't know, work can be pleasurable as well, but this is friends and family, so that's wonderful.
That's fantastic. And we've picked a nice day for it. The weather is just perfect. Not quite that hot weather that we had the other week, but
No, that's right. The garden has almost recovered at home, so that's good.
Yes, I'm pleased to hear that. So what about your flying, Bo? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, there isn't that much to tell. I'm quite embarrassed to say that I haven't done an awful lot of flying. I've done the 8 theory exams, and I've done the radio certificate you need to have in Denmark to be able to do any RT as a student pilot. You have to do the certificate first. So I've been quite busy doing that, and I'm trying to actually get some flying in, and work's been really intense as well, with a lot of travel. So my CFIs keep telling me I should be flying at least twice a week, and I'm sort of lucky if I can do it twice a month. So it's really embarrassing. It's like starting all over.
Now, in terms of GA in Denmark, what are the airspace restrictions like? Is there a lot more space there than there is here, for example?
That really depends on where you are. I mean, in some areas there's a lot of space. Where we are in the Copenhagen area, we're right under the Copenhagen Airport TMA. So basically we're allowed up to 1,500 feet. And the airport elevation is 147, so you've got a little bit to work with between your sort of 1,000 feet AGL and your 1,500, where you bounce into the TMA. So it's quite restricted in that area, and it's a really mixed operation as well, with lots of different types of flight training going on, and commercial operations, rescue helicopters and stuff. So it's a very interesting place to fly. I find that really quite demanding. Might have been easier to start somewhere simpler, but if you sort of do that, you'll probably be okay in many places.
The hundreds of times I've flown into Copenhagen Airport as a passenger, visibility has always been a problem, or certainly in the winter operations. Okay. There's very often some low vis going on there. I'm
yes.
sure that must be quite difficult if you're a GA person.
I imagine so. I mean, whatever little flying I've done under really good VFR conditions, so I hadn't really had any reason to complain. But we had some cancellations due to weather. That's true.
Yeah. What do you normally fly? What aircraft is your aircraft of choice at the moment?
I'm training on the PA-28, the 140, the short stoppy wing one, the Piper Cherokee Cruiser, which is nice. It apparently, I can't really tell, but it flies differently from the Warrior wing, which is broader and floats more. But the commercial school I started at fly the Evector Sport Star, which is all Czech and modern and different type of engine and all electronic, all glass cockpit, which I like the glass cockpit, but I found it really hard to fly. It was very, very sensitive, I thought, to any little bit of turbulence. So I think the Piper Warrior type is I think it's heavier, it's easier to handle for me, I think, even though I do it badly. It's not as bad as what I imagine, could you imagine that? It's not actually quite as bad what I'm doing in that one as what I was doing in the Sports Star, which is really nimble.
We always say, don't we, that it's so expensive to learn to fly in Europe, generally speaking. Is that the same in Denmark as well?
It is. It is a lot more expensive than in the UK. And also you have to do more of the theory before you can do any serious flying, I think. So it's more of an investment. Having said that, it does vary a lot as to whether you fly in a club or if you fly with a commercial school.
So what got you into GA flying in the first place?
I think back when I was 18, I really wanted to learn flying, and I sort of joined the glider club. And I never, for several reasons, I never got to do very much of that because it took me forever to get there on the bus. I didn't have a car. It was all actually just very difficult to find the time, and I sort of got engaged in doing lots of other things. And once I started medical school, I didn't really think I had the time. So it wasn't until I sort of started listening to all the aviation podcasts and thought, oh, you could actually, why if you didn't actually have to go for a PPL, you could just go on a discovery flight and see what it feels like and fly with an instructor, and that's kind of how I got back into the idea of maybe actually doing a PPL would be interesting. I still not sure I'm going to be able to go through with it, but at least I've done the theory. So I got back to it, and it's really been interesting learning all these things, but I'm learning it really slowly. I probably should have done this at 18. It would have been much easier.
There's a bit of a theme I've noticed with the medical profession in that I know a lot of consultants and anaesthetists and all sorts of people that are very well qualified in the aviation sector as well. I wonder why that is.
I don't know. I mean, it used to be that certainly American cardiologists were famous for buying high-performance aircraft and getting themselves killed because they didn't have the skills to fly them. I think apparently you can teach doctors to fly, it'll just take longer than for other people. But I think I spoke to a CFI here who said that doctors probably overthink flying. I don't know if that's true. I think I might underthink it.
And a bit like Dr. Steph on the APG show, do you have a medical interest in aviation as well, or do you keep the two subjects completely separate?
I mean, it was doing the human factors for PPL. It was actually a little bit confusing having the medical background, because sometimes the answer they wanted wasn't the one I thought of. It was difficult finding out exactly what answers that they want, because if medicine is your area, then you could probably come up with several ways of answering the same question.
And from the medical point of view, though, was that something which you wanted to get into from university, for example? Did you study especially for that?
For the calcium area?
Yeah.
Not really, no. I mean, when I was at medical school, I wasn't even sure I was going to do medicine. So we had, the way the university worked, where I went, was at that time you could do a science field type degree, and then that could be medicine, or it could be something else. But if you enrolled as a medical student, you could choose from all the other subjects. But if you enrolled in science, you couldn't switch into medicine. So I thought, well, it's probably better to try and get into it as a medical student. And then once I got started on that, I sort of began to develop more of an interest in medicine, and stayed with that. And initially, I thought I was going to become a hematologist, and then I sort of branched off into from the bone marrow into the actual bone. And I mean, circumstances, opportunities might take you to some area that you haven't expected.
Sure, yes. Now, obviously, you're studying for your PPL. That's right, isn't it? If you were able to obtain that, do you think it will be the sort of thing where you'd want to go on further for an instrument rating, for example, and that kind of thing?
I think in our part of the world, it would be really useful having instrument rating, because the weather is obviously often not good in Northern Europe. So I think that would be an interesting thing to do. I'm still really not sure that I'll be able to put in the hours to actually get my PPL, let alone an instrument rating. Finding it really difficult to block out enough time to be able to go out and fly and have it fit when the plane is available and when the CFI is available and the weather's up to it.
This is always the thing, as you say, in Northern Europe, trying to make all those things line up properly, because apart from the cost involved, it's people's availability, the weather and all this sort of thing. I mean, I can think of nothing better than for you to fly from Castrop Airport to Oxford one day. But is that an ambition of yours, do you think?
I'll certainly avoid Castrop, because just taxiing there, I think I probably wouldn't be able to make it to the runway.
That airport, I mean, I love Copenhagen Airport. I think it's a fantastic airport, but it has grown so much over the 25 years that I've been flying from there.
Yes, I think it's overstrained. I mean, if you go there as a passenger, there's a real shortage of all facilities now. You've got too few loos, too few seats in the lounges, and everything is sort of overstrained.
Just think about the GA aspect, though, around Denmark. Are there some good general aviation fields and clubs?
I mean, if you're thinking Copenhagen, the largest flying club in Denmark is in Roskilde Airport, which is the other Copenhagen airport, which is about 10 miles west of Copenhagen Airport. So it's right under the TMA for Kastrup Airport. I think there are 4 flying schools there. There's a lot of mixed operations. There's rescue helicopters there, ambulance flights, business jets. So it's a very mixed operations. You can do tons of flying there. That's can be challenging given the vicinity of the big international airport. But there are also plenty of places in Denmark where you can fly from small grass strips and medium-sized airports. So
that's the nice thing about Denmark, isn't it? With lots of islands around, you can do a lot of island hopping.
That's what people do. They fly out and have lunch on one of the islands and come back, or they, bring back lobsters and stuff from the islands back to Copenhagen. That sort of thing is very popular. You just fly away for the 50-pound ice cream.
Yes, that's right.
There's a lot of that going on. Yeah, absolutely.
But with your medical studies and the lecturing that you do and everything, I guess your private time, we probably don't have much of it, I would imagine.
And it's difficult. I mean, I'd really like to be able to say that I could commit to flying 2 afternoons a week or something like that, but it's going to be more like two afternoons a month, which is not really enough to make any progress with the training. And it's interesting, compared with other hobbies. I mean, you could play tennis and you could be okay that you were crap at it and you kept being not very good. You could still enjoy it. But with aviation, you're sort of, I mean, you have to be able to move on to the next lesson somehow.
It's all about practice, isn't it? Of course, every flight is different. The weather's different on every flight, and just trying to keep those hours up and the consistency must be very difficult, I would imagine.
Yes, I'm certainly finding very, very challenging. I should probably have done more to stick with it when I was younger. I'm sure I would have been able to learn slightly faster. It just takes longer when you come 50 plus. It is,
everything, yes, absolutely, and the learning capacity and that kind of thing. It always takes longer.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, it's been a great pleasure to talk to you today, Bo. Thank you very much indeed for meeting up.
It's been really nice meeting you in person.
What a lovely little interview, Nev. Well done. How was that?
Oh, thank you. It was slightly impromptu because we just sort of turned up and we found somewhere to sit on the riverbank there. But it was very nice indeed. And Bo's a fascinating chap. And he's got such a busy job in his medical field. Yeah. Trying to find time to do all these other things as well. But he's a very keen aviator. But like so many people, just trying to find the time to do it. And it's quite expensive in Denmark as well. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
So.
One of the lovely things, I've actually got his Twitter page up in front of me right now. So it's at Dr. Bo Abrahamsen. We'll include it in the show notes, I think, when we do. But I love that, everybody puts like a little description of who or what they are and what their tweeting is going to be all about. It says Professor and is it endocrin? I can't even say it anyway. Tweeting in a private capacity, mostly bone research. Consult your doctor if health concerns. And then the last line, which I really love, it says traces of aviation. It's just, I absolutely love it. Really, really nice. And what a lovely, lovely man he was.
Yes, and he's a very keen viewer and listener to the Airline Pilot Guy show.
Is he? Oh, well, we all have our cross to bear, don't we?
And I'm into bone research myself. Ba-doom, bam. Okay.
That's
let's see.
what he said.
I was going to say. Well, I was going to compliment Nev on his interviewing skills. You know, people, you think that interviewing somebody is an easy thing to do. It's not.
No.
Nev makes it look easy.
Yeah,
I do find it quite difficult, I have to say, and it's taken a little while to get it where it is, but I still think I can do a lot better sometimes. But yeah,
oh yeah,
always like to improve. yeah, shocking.
I just try to get the best out of people by not saying very much and let them do the talking.
I think, and because so much of this, oh hello, oh hi, that's. What is that? Is that a bucket of wine?
No, it's just my little wine glass.
That's an impressive receptacle you have there, sir.
Yes.
What a receptacle that is. Wow. Okay. Well, it's obviously wine o'clock where Jeff is. Great news.
I'm on your time zone.
Oh,
right?
I see. Oh, right. So 8:30 in the evening. Excellent. Yes. I'm being a bit boring here. I've got me boring old squash here. Look, I clearly made the mistake, but that's because I'm driving tomorrow, so I have to be very good when I'm driving.
Yes, very good.
So
next then, we have some military.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yes.
Stuff. So, are we all ready for the military?
Certainly am. Yes, ready to go.
Excellent.
Oh, dearie me. Apologies. My levels are all over the place this evening. I obviously need to go back and I need to go and learn some more stuff. Sorry about that.
You need to go to audio school.
I do need to go back to audio school, don't I? Yes. Naughty boy.
Levels? What do you mean? What is that?
Yeah. Yes, that's the only trouble when you do it 100% live, that you can't really do it in post. But anyway, there we are. All part of the fun. Anyway, sorry. Should we do some grey stuff, ladies and gents?
As we're here, we might as well. And this story is on the Derby Telegraph, and there's a bit of video with this, Matt. I don't know whether you can show this at all.
I'm on it.
It's an RAF Chinook helicopter was just a few feet over the famous Derwent Dam, and an incredible display of skill by its pilot. The amazing footage of the training exercise was captured by a 14-year-old boy. The Chinook was spotted over Derwent Dam on Tuesday afternoon, August the 28th, at around 12:30 p.m. By 14-year-old Riley Routledge and his mother Dawn from Ashbourne. The footage shows the aircraft hover over the dam before making a manoeuvre, then flying off down the Lady Bower Reservoir. Dawn, 34, don't know why I say that.
Very relevant, obviously.
Alarmed at how close the helicopter was, but was amazed at the sight. She said, "I was walking with my son near the reservoir because at this time of year the water is low and you can see the bottom at the old railway line. But we were just walking around and saw the Chinook just flying right near us. I tried to get my phone out, but my son was already recording. The credit goes to him. I posted it online in a photography group and it's gained over 400 likes already. I don't know why they were there, but it looked amazing. If you look closely at the video, you can see two men standing up inside the Chinook. I thought they were going to jump or glide down on a rope at one point. I never expected to see something like that, but it was amazing. Derwent Dam was used during the intensive training for the Lancaster bombers of the World War II dam busters.
And of course, actually, recently, when over the 100th RAF flypast, of course, they recreated that exact same thing, didn't they, with the Lancaster flying over the Derwent Dam. And the only reason I know that is because the Sunday after our marvellous seeding barbecue, this is our first stop that we made when we did the company I was working for on that day, a tour of beautiful Derbyshire. And I have literally taken a piece of video exactly there, not with a Chinook in it, it has to be said. But an amazing, it's a beautiful place. And I have to say, the thing that stunned me about that entire reservoir, because it was off the back of a very dry period, was how low that water level actually was. I mean, people we were talking to there, they have never seen the water level so low.
Yeah,
in all the years.
It's been a very barren time, isn't it? Both in the Midlands, where this is, and in all parts of the country. But an Army spokesman said that the Chinook came from an airbase in Hampshire, which was RAF Odium, and on a routine training flight. So to ensure the Chinook force has crews trained for a variety of operational scenarios, different geographic locations and environments are used to build pilot confidence flying in and around confined spaces and obstacles.
Very
there we go.
good. Yeah, it's a site. Well, an impressive site. I don't know why aviation, anything aviation related, is always so much more impressive when it ends up being somewhere you don't expect it to see it really. But there we are. Okay, on to the next story now. This is on the Air Force Technology website. So that's airforce-technology.com, and it says the USAF and US Army conduct joint training exercises in exercise Predictable Iron. The US Air Force's USAS 62nd Airlift Wing has participated in exercise Predictable Iron with the US Army's 82nd Airborne Airborne Division at Pope Field, North Carolina. As part of the exercise, the two units from the Air Force and the Army participated in a joint training activity to drop equipment and personnel at two drop zones. In 3 days, airmen from the 62nd Airlift Wing, together with soldiers from the 82nd Airborne Division, dropped 40 tons worth of equipment, such as armoured vehicles and resupply containers, and a total of 1,005 paratroopers. 7th Airlift Squadron pilot and C-17 aircraft commander, Captain Jared Barkamay, said it's important that the Air Force participate in these events to ensure that we are ready to do what our nation expects of us, which is to insert the 82nd Airborne anywhere in the world within a short time frame. Also, during these events, we identify shortcomings between the two services and eliminate them in order to strengthen our joint force initiative. He also added that inserting hundreds of jumpers into an objective area tests the crew's abilities as well as strengthens our habit patterns. During the joint training, airmen from the 7th and 8th Airlift Squadrons of the 62nd Airlift Wing crewed two C-17 Globemaster III military transport aircraft to assist more than 1,000 US Army paratroopers. The airmen and soldiers worked in collaboration with load equipment on the two C-17s. They also worked with jump masters and paratroopers to enable them to maintain their readiness requirements for different airborne missions. Furthermore, the US Army practiced dropping the caster-assisted A-series delivery system, which is a new method of drop door bundles, a container of equipment pushed out of the doors of an aircraft. Exercise Predictable Iron, that's an unusual title, isn't it? Was designed to enable the USAF and the US Army to improve their skills sets and work in cooperation to attain a common goal, in addition to providing the US Department of Defense with combat credible military forces. So it's so there's an interesting exercise by all accounts.
Matt, what was the name of the mission again?
It was Exercise Predictable Iron.
That's what she said.
Indeed, I know. Actually, to be fair, as I was reading most of that story, there were several moments where I wasn't expecting, and that's what she said being dropped in at least 3 times there. I thought I was going to be.
And I'm wearing a shirt that says TWSS.
Absolutely, yeah. Indeed. Never mind. Yes, you do wonder if the innuendo is actually on purpose.
I have a feeling somebody who came up with the name of the exercise.
Predictable.
Just having a little bit of fun. I'm guessing.
You didn't know. Just you.
I fear that may be the case, gents. Indeed.
Pope Field. I spent several years there one week.
Okay.
Right.
We used to call it No Hope Pope.
Right. Okay.
Back when it was actually an Air Force base, and they shut down the Air Force base, and now it's just called a field right next to Fort Bragg, I believe. Yeah.
It's just
82nd Airborne.
Wow.
Anyway,
interesting. I mean, I always find it quite fascinating. I mean, I'm surprised they don't work together more. I suppose because I mean, it's the same here in the UK, isn't it? You get more and more of the Army doesn't work with the Navy that often, and so on and so forth. So I suppose these sort of exercises can be quite important because there are occasions where they do actually have to work together. And I suppose if they've practiced, then it's less likely to look stupid, I guess.
Yes. Less likely.
Less likely. Yes, less likely. Indeed. Somebody get me out of this dangerous area I've wandered into.
Yes.
Well,
the final story is for you, Jeff, on the military segment.
Daddy, I've fished a mortar out of the River Cam.
Right, in Cambridge. Lovely. What a lovely part of the world it is.
Great accent as well.
That was a terrible accent.
Yeah,
I'm very bad with English accents.
I guess your audition for Mary Poppins was very successful. You may.
I couldn't help it though. There's this video here in my particular article that I'm going to read here.
Okay.
A young man. Well, here, let me tell you. It's from Cambridgeshire Live.
Mm-hmm.
And how did I do with that? Okay.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very good.
A young history buff who pulled a bomb from the River Cam got to meet the RAF officers who destroyed it.
Oh.
A young history buff who pulled. Why do they do that all the time? They have a headline and then they put the first sentence the same thing as the headline.
Yeah, they like to do that.
Do they get paid by the word?
Possibly. I think perhaps they're just padding. You know, if it's a local rag, perhaps they're just padding for inches, as it were.
Yeah. Well, anyway, Monty Greenway pulled the historic bomb from the river while magnet fishing with his brother. It's magnet fishing with his brother and dad near Jesus Green or Jesus Green, depending on how you pronounce it. What is it?
It is Jesus Green.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Jesus Green in Cambridge. That's when I remember that story from the New Testament when Jesus got sick. Okay. As a young history buff, the 11-year-old knew immediately what he had fished out, and the 5131 bomb disposal unit from RAF Wittering were called in. Monty told Cambridgeshire Live at the time, I had already pulled out some stuff, some scrap metal, and I threw it, the magnet, in the middle of the river. I felt something on the end. I slowly pulled it out of the water. I looked at it and told Daddy I have a mortar shell on the end of the magnet.
Wow.
He added, it's not what I was expecting. I thought it would be a bike wheel, not a mortar shell. Monty hoped he could have a fragment of the shell, but the bomb disposal unit had taken it to be blown up in a nearby field. Well, they still could have given him a fragment of it right after they exploded it.
Clean it up.
Anyway, Monty's dad, Guy, got in touch with the RAF Wittering, and they invited Monty to visit the base and see some of their specialized equipment. The 11-year-old, I'll move on. The 11-year-old is sure to have a great back-to-school story in September as he regales classmates with the story of how he visited the RAF's compound and saw some of the latest technology being used by bomb disposal experts because of his cool find.
That is quite, yeah. It's a brave job. I'll get the bomb disposal guys, because I suppose you have no idea what these things are going to do. I mean, just because they've been sat in the water doesn't necessarily mean that they aren't going to go off, I guess.
Did you cover that story not too long ago by a woman who found a mortar, unexploded bomb, and took it with her as a souvenir to, I think it was the Vienna airport?
Oh, no.
Basically shut the airport down for a while.
What?
At least the security.
Wow,
Yeah,
no.
she washed it off in her hotel room sink and got all the mud and everything off of it and had it in her luggage as she tried to make her trip back home. And they were not too happy about
No, I can imagine. I can't imagine why they were waspy about that. just like it's. I mean, all the jokes aside, though, we've sort of diverted from the story slightly here. But you just think, at what point did they think that would be okay to take into an airport? I mean, it just like
I don't know.
You wouldn't think, you think a gun or any kind of explosive is probably not a good thing to take into an airport when you're about to fly home.
I think that her thinking apparently was that, well, this thing could not possibly be dangerous because, how could it be an active bomb, being underwater for so long and whatever in the mud, not realizing that, oh, yes, it could still be live.
Well, yeah. I mean, if the seals are still intact and everything, I mean, all right, maybe the detonator's not functioning anymore, but the gunpowder within is likely to still be quite dangerous. Yeah, it's odd. Never mind. Anyway, that is where we bring the military segment to a close. Now, I know. I'm sorry. It's only the three. We've got Carlos isn't here, although he does keep popping up in the chat room. I notice. Even now, he's supposed to be busy doing a disco. I don't know what he's up to. But yes, although he's not here, we do have a a little piece from him, I believe, Nev. Is that correct?
We do, and we shot this at the Seething Fly-In that we did a couple of weeks ago, which was a very good event indeed. We'll have to do another one of those. I really enjoyed
it was good fun, actually.
That day. And one of our hosts there was a gentleman called Dan Gay. And Dan owns and flies a Long Easy aircraft, which is a Rutan Model 61. It's a home-built aircraft with a canard layout and designed by Bert Rutan of Rutan Aircraft Factory in the USA. And Carlos had a chat with Dan about it, and Dan took us around the aircraft and told us a bit about it.
Okay, so for those of you who follow us on Facebook or follow me on Facebook will probably know that earlier this week I got the chance to go in a rather unique aircraft, and it's behind us now, and I'm here with the owner, Dan. Dan, welcome onto the show.
Hello, nice to be here.
So Dan, tell us a bit about the aircraft that's sitting behind us here.
Tell you a bit about, where do I start? Well, the first thing, it's a canard. It's got a little wing in the front. It was designed by Bert Rutan. Very fast, economical aircraft, fun to fly.
I can definitely say it is fun to fly.
You seem to enjoy yourself.
I did enjoy myself, yeah. So Dan, how long have you had the aircraft?
I've had it for nearly 4 years now. And got my display authorization to show it around the UK about 2 years ago.
Wow, because you were recently at the Great Yarmouth Air Show.
I was in the show, yeah, that was great fun.
Your first air show?
No, it wasn't.
No?
I've done about 6 air shows, and that was the latest one.
Excellent, excellent. You obviously you displayed the aircraft along with the other aircraft there at the show. Was there other display aircraft with you as well, or any formation flying?
No, it's just me. It's a solo
you?
spot. Yeah, and it's not certified for aerobatics in the UK, so I was limited to what I could do. But just showing the unique lines of the plane was the most, prominent thing about it.
So Dan, one of the things a lot of people probably notice about the aircraft is the way it's sitting here now behind us with the nose on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
For the benefit of the listeners who might not know, how does this work? When you're obviously, because you can't taxi it like this.
Mm-hmm. The reason why it's sitting on its nose is all the weight when nobody's in it's in the back of the plane, and if you lift the air, I could show you. It's very light on its nose when nobody's in it, so it would probably tip back if you kept the nose wheel down. So it's parked on its nose, just for safety, really. When you're going to get in the plane, the passenger just steps on the front seat, puts his leg over into the back, and once they're in, you can lift the plane up, put the nose wheel down, and jump in.
Excellent. So tell us a bit of the performance specs of the aircraft, Dan.
It's very fast considering it's only got a 115 horsepower Lycoming engine. Cruising economically about 130 knots. If you want to go wide open throttle at altitude, you can get it up to about 160, 170. It's the same engine they put in a Cessna 150, but almost double the performance.
Wow.
So very economical to fly and a lot of fun to fly.
So given the choice of the aircraft you've got up here, then Dan, it'd always be the Long Easy.
It would always be the Long Easy.
Yeah. Any plans for the future for the aircraft? Are you?
Not really. A lot of people have asked if they could buy into it, buy shares, but I'm not really interested in that yet. Craig.
Oh, some upset people. Yeah. But no, how long have you been flying, Dan?
I learned to fly here at Seething. It must be 14 years now, 14, 15 years ago. I'm a club member. It took a while to get my license here because they only trained 1 day a week back then. They trained on a Saturday, so it took me nearly 2 years to get my license. And a great little club and a fun place to learn how to fly.
And we are here, obviously, at the summer barbecue, our first PTUK barbecue. Just over there, you'll probably see all the guys and girls there who have joined us for today's barbecue. And you've had some barbecue food.
Burgers were great.
Burgers are great. There we go.
Much.
Matt, you heard it here first. So, well, from the barbecue, thanks, Dan, for joining us. It's been great to talk to you. But before you go, we're going to ask you one question.
Okay.
And it's a question we always ask any pilot we interview for the show. Put you on the spot question. Are you ready?
Yeah, go on. Is it going to be what plane would I have?
Yeah. He's a listener of the show, you see. That's good. But given the chance, Dan, to fly any plane, either retired, commercial, GA, military, and you could hop in now and take it for a run around the circuit here at Seething, what would it be?
It'd have to be a Mustang.
Well, you might get a chance later on when that one comes in. Great choice. So from me, Carlos, then, and we'll leave it there.
There we are. Oh, that was Did you know that is a fascinating looking aircraft, isn't it? It's
It is. And Jeff, you've flown in one of these.
Have you?
I have, yeah. Back in my Air Force days, my roommate, for a short period of time, had, or actually bought one. He didn't make it himself. Those are home built, and he bought it from somebody else. And this guy, he kept asking me if I wanted to go fly with him in his long Easy. And I said, I always had an excuse. And then he came over one day and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Nothing." He goes, "Okay, let's go to the Nut Tree Airport and go fly on this airplane." I'm thinking, because he didn't have a reputation for being the most responsible pilot.
Good, right. It's always what you want to hear it from a pilot, yeah.
But we went up and had a great time. Went out over Lake Berryessa. What's the name of that small light sport amphibian? Starts with an A, I think. I can't off the top of my
head.
The
chat room will tell us very shortly.
Yeah, they'll know what I'm talking
indeed,
about. Anyway, there have been some recent crashes. In fact, one of the crashes involved one of the people high up in the company and one of the test pilots, and they were flying over Lake Berryessa. Their headquarters are not too far from there. I think they're in Vacaville. And Icon, that's it. Thank you, Robert. Or is it Richard? Icon A5. That's a private joke there.
Yeah, Rob.
I called him Richard the other day on my show.
Oh, right. I was going to say.
So I get to apologize on not only my own show, but your show as well. Sorry, Robert, for calling me Richard.
Yes. Apologies are well covered.
Yeah. Anyway, they fly over Lake Berryessa a lot, and several years before that, back in the 80s, I was flying low level over Lake Berryessa and did some aileron rolls and that kind of thing in it. I hope that's okay.
Robert accepts your apology wholeheartedly, but he says, just don't call me Shirley.
Okay. I will not call you Shirley, Robert. Anyway, I've had a little experience with that airplane. It's very cool, very fast, and it's a really cool looking airplane as well.
It is.
Yeah, Dan was saying that at altitude it was capable of 160, 170 knots.
Goodness me.
Incredible, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think that works out to be close to 200 miles an hour, which is, that's what
blimey.
A friend of mine told me.
I think it's one of those few things, isn't it? You look at it. I mean, it's a beautiful looking aircraft, isn't it? It almost looks space age, doesn't it? It looks like it ought to be on the Starship Enterprise rather than sort of flying around seething and around our neck of the woods, really. But what are the criteria to make? Because he was saying that it hasn't been rated for acrobatics yet here in the UK. I mean, what are the conditions? I mean, I sort of foolishly assumed that all aircraft could be sort of, classed as, acrobatic worthy if they were, if the pilot was qualified to do so.
Well, I'm not sure of the regulations in the UK, but here in the US, and I'm not absolutely sure either of all the
50-50. We'll take a 50-50. That's fine.
It has to be, something that is rated to pull a certain number of G forces, because many aerobatic maneuvers do require not excessive Gs, but a lot more than just flying around at 1 G. So you have to have, the proper ratings for that. It has to be tested to ensure that it can withstand. Let's say if you're doing a loop, you may pull 3 to 4 Gs in the pull out of a loop, depending on the airplane. Also, the fuel delivery system has to be rated for continuous flow of fuel and continuous flow of oil,
right? So
that the engine doesn't seize.
Gosh, yes, important factors.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's it is a beautiful aircraft. There's no two ways about it. As I say, it's and it's very unusual. Well, I don't know. It's certainly in the UK, it's quite unusual for the aircraft to be owned by a single person. Quite a lot of them, I think, here in the UK, they're sort of syndicates. I suppose otherwise you just don't get enough time to fly them, and it's a bit of a waste, I guess. But GA aircraft is more commonplace. It's a single ownership in the States, isn't it? I mean, I seem to remember watching programs when I was a kid, like of whole cities that were sort of, people were driving down the road in their airplanes and parking them. If you it was a sort of like an airplane sort of town almost. Mm-hmm. Or is that just Hollywood nonsense?
I mean, almost every town is like that, and we're all filthy rich here. That's why we can afford to have our own airplanes. And we don't know what to do with all our money.
Right, fair enough. So aviation seemed the obvious way to go. Yes, fair enough. Yes,
why not?
I'm doing very well at making myself look very stupid on this show. This is why
there are a lot of.
This is why I'm the tech guy. You see,
a lot of communities around the states that we call fly-in communities, where actually it's like a neighborhood with the homes are widely spaced, and many of the homes have hangars. Instead of having they have garages for their cars, but they also have, or garages, but they also have hangars attached or close by where they put their airplanes, and right out the front yard or backyard or whatever is an airstrip. And there are quite a few of them, private little airports out there, flying communities around the country.
So what are you up to this coming week, Jeff? Have you got lots of flying?
Well, this weekend is our Labor Day weekend here in the United States, and my family, we never really do anything special for Labor Day, and I'm usually laboring on Labor Day, and that's what I'm going to do. That's my tradition. I'm heading out on a trip, if you can call flying airplanes labor. I'm heading out on a 4-day trip starting on Monday with just one flight from here to Wichita, Kansas. And so if you're out there in Wichita and you're listening to this show, give me a holler and we'll get together and maybe have some barbecue or something in Wichita.
I love barbecue.
And on Tuesday, this is important. I hope you don't mind me
Not at all,
plugging this. If you're watching this live, of course, if you're watching the replay, this may be too late for you. But on Tuesday, the 4th of September, Rebecca Saylor has kind of organized a meetup at the Flight 93 Memorial in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Flight 93 was the United flight that was hijacked amongst the 4 that were hijacked on September 11th of 2001. And this is the one where the passengers basically overcame the terrorists and forced the airplane down. It was a 757 that crashed in rural Pennsylvania. And they have this memorial that they've opened, and I'm going to fly. I have a layover at Dulles International in Virginia, but it's in the Washington area. And Robert Fairbairn is going to pick me up, and we're going to head out to his local airport. We're going to rent an airplane. We're going to fly up to Shanksville, or an airport very close by, and Rebecca is going to pick us up from there. And then we're going to hopefully meet up with some other APG community members, or Aviation podcast community members, and take in the memorial and hang out with each other. And I'm really looking forward to that. Again, that's Tuesday, September 4th.
That sounds wonderful. Yeah. So if you're in the area, then get in touch via either tweet or get in touch. What's your email? Well, let's do a little show plugging, shall we? While we're there, if they want to sort of find out more information about said meetup, or they want to get in touch with you guys, what's the best way for them to do that?
All right. If you, for me, my personal email address is jeff@airlinepilotguy.com. And if you want to send feedback to our show, it's feedback@airlinepilotguy.com. But either of those would work. And let us know if you're going to be in the area and if you want to participate. Looks like we're going to be arriving somewhere between 3:15 and 3:30 on Tuesday afternoon.
Sounds lovely. I do love a meetup. I must say it was one of the lovely things about Seething was it was so nice to sort of have so many listeners there, sort of just enjoying the show. So yes, if you want to, obviously if they're not aware of the Airline Pilot Go, I don't know how that's even possible. Frankly, it's www.airlinepilotguy.com, and you've got links on there to listen to current and presumably future episodes as well. And let's not forget, of course, the legendary Plain Tales series that is now available on your website as well, done by Captain Nick, as he does one for your show every week, doesn't he? And yes, the back catalogue is now available for you to listen to directly from the Airline Pilot Guy website.
That is correct.
There we are. See, I could do this broadcasting lark. You see, it's easy peasy.
Yeah, great. I'm learning a lot.
Yeah, whatever. Moving on. Perhaps I could persuade you, Nev, to tell everybody how they get in touch with us. We'd love to get some feedback from you. We haven't had any audio feedback from our lovely listeners, and I know that there are lots of people out there because I'm looking at the figures every single week when I upload the show. So I know we've got lots of people who listen, but you're all very shy and you don't like to share it with us for some reason. So how do they send their feedback to us, Nev?
Well, you can go to our website, which is plaintalkinguk.com. You can go to our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/plaintalkinguk. We have a Twitter, which is quite active at the moment, I've noticed.
It is, yes. It's been a bit...
And that's at plaintalkinguk.
Yeah.
And any of those methods, you'll be able to get in contact with the show. Send us your feedback. And if you'd like me to feature an interview with you, we've got some coming up of some more Nev's passenger experience.
Excellent.
I'm very happy to do that as well.
Indeed, yes. So emails and everything all into podcast@plaintalkinguk.com. That's podcast@plaintalkinguk.com. I don't mind how we get your audio feedback. You can use the voice recording function in the Facebook Messenger for all I care. I will find a way of retrieving it from our system and putting it into the playout system. So however your phone records audio, all the phones are brilliant these days. The iPhones especially, the microphones in them are great. So got no excuses, guys. You can record us a little piece, even if you're just on holiday and you want to tell us a little bit about the flight that you had out there. Podcast@plaintalkinguk.com.
I'd like to say something, if you don't mind.
Okay, yes, fine.
Before we go. So these podcasts that we do, we love doing the podcasts. We love aviation. We have a passion for all of this, hanging out with our community members, which, as I've said many times, is really the best part of being involved in aviation podcasting. But it's not free. It's free for you. You don't have to pay anything for these things, but it's not free for us. And if you want to help support this endeavor, if you have the resources to do so, do as I do and become a patron of the PTUK. And I'm sure you'll find they'll tell us right now how you can become a patron of their show.
Yeah, I mean, there's several ways that you can contribute. So if you go to our website, that's the best place. So it's www.plaintalkinguk.com. On there, you'll find all the links you need. One for Patreon. Patreon is a way of donating to the show. You can do a PayPal donation, which several of our listeners now use. And also, if you perhaps are a little bit short on money, as I am, but you do use Amazon to do your shopping, then make sure you use the Amazon link that's on our website, and you can donate to the show without it costing you a penny. We get a small advert referral fee, essentially, for the privilege of you using our link, and that helps us buy things like leads and things to keep the show on air. So thank you, Jeff. That's very kind.
Well, I mean it. If you want, it's not essential. I'm sure that we probably do these things without financial support. But I mean, I'm sorry I said that out loud.
Yes.
But it really does help motivate us to keep doing what we're doing. When people actually, take ownership in these shows, it really does help motivate us to keep on going and keep giving you the best content that we can.
Yeah, a lot of our listeners are very good about sending us links to stories that they've stumbled across as well, and we really appreciate any emails about stories that sometimes we miss. I mean, we trawl through. I mean, the newswires looking for the stories, and some of the best stories that we've had in recent weeks certainly have actually been sent to you by our wonderful listeners. So do as I say, as Jeff says, it's made for you by us. So if you've got any content for us, then we love to receive it. We really do. Well, that's enough of that on message stuff. I think we should.
Well, we certainly tried to get the content up, to a higher standard this year with more video, more audio, more all sorts of things. And we're very happy to bring that to you. We enjoy doing it.
Yeah, so, it's been quite an upgrade from. I mean, a lot of this I have to say we have Nev to thank for PT UK, because that camera of yours, Nev, has generated some absolutely outstanding footage. Nothing to do with the operator completely. It's everything.
I just switch it on, press auto, and take the lens.
And hope for the best. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But
that's the main reason why they need your financial support, because Nev's budget, I think, is like thousands of dollars.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's all we can do to cope. Absolutely, it's great. But no, seriously, guys, thank you very much. And for those of you who are already donating and contributing, we really do appreciate every single penny. And at the top of each month, as you know, we shall run our way through. We shall name check you all at presumably next week's show would be the next. I can't believe it's September next month already. How has that happened?
I know. Yeah, absolutely unbelievable.
Indeed, we probably ought to start wrapping up now. Really, we've actually overrun. Can you believe? Without Carlos, we have actually overrun.
It's probably my influence.
No. It's not 4 hours long, Jeff. Don't be silly.
Wait a minute.
Never mind. Anyway, yes, that is where we bring episode number 232 to a close. It's been a real pleasure. Captain Jeff, what can I say? You are the man, the legend. It's been so nice to have you on the show. Thank you so much for agreeing to fill Carlos's rather ample boots. It's been a pleasure as always.
I really enjoyed it. I always enjoy being on with you all. You guys are great.
That's very good. Well done. Nev, same time next week?
Yes, I think we're looking to do a different day.
Yes, well, it's a little bit up in the air at the moment. Yeah. We've got a possible relatively high-fly guest. Not that Captain Jeff obviously is not high-fly or high-brow enough.
Wait a minute. May I interrupt you for a second here? I was under the impression that I was going to be the new permanent host of the show.
Right. I'm quite happy to retire. That's fine by me. That's not a problem at all. You can press all the buttons. You do it a lot better than I do. I can assure you of that.
Well, it was very misleading, the emails that I received.
Yes,
so.
I know.
I know. I want to put that out there.
I'm afraid our PR department was in charge of the email. It's, it's entirely Nev's fault. Yes. So there's a little bit. We're a little bit up in the air at the moment, depending on if we can pull off the interview that we're hoping to pull off. Will depend on what day next week the show is recorded. So we're looking at either a Friday or a Sunday, basically, is what I'm saying. So it's either Friday evening as normal, or it may well be Sunday. But there'll be more information coming about that. Watch our social media, as Nev said earlier. It's at Plain Talking UK if you are on Twitter, and just put basically in any of the social media, just put Plain Talking UK into your search engine, and you will find us. And that's where we tweet basically when we're going to record live. So from all of us here, let me see if let's do the fancy multicam thing. There we are. Look, there's all of us together. We will. It's time to say goodbye. Say goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.
And we
goodbye,
will see
everybody.
you very, very soon. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.